Anthony, welcome to Edinburgh.
No small talk here, let's just get into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why waste time?
Yeah.
Welcome to Edinburgh. You're here to promote your latest movie, In Darkness,
Mm-hmm.
is that right? The title, is that a metaphor of an analogy of Natalie Dormer's character being blind, living and seeing in darkness?
It's every level of darkness, yeah. Darkness everywhere.
What is the meaning behind the title?
Well, she's a blind protagonist, so she's literally in darkness. There's the darkness of her life when she was a child, and where she's come from, and the conflict that she's come from. It works on a multitude of levels, and very much guides her through the movie. She's really kind of a character who's haunted by her past.
So you and Natalie are partners in real life, and what was it like writing together?
Writing was great. We had a lot of fun breaking the story and breaking the beats of the story and the structure, and we had the 3 acts written up on the wall in our spare bedroom in our old flat, and we would sort of follow the timeline, and it was a lot of good times working out those characters. And we have kept those boards with these 3 A1 boards, Act 1, 2 and 3, with the timelines of where everybody is, and they're somewhere in our new place stored. But it was a lot of fun to sit down and do it. There's always a little bit of tension when somebody's more passionate or defensive of a scene or a line of dialogue or something like that, or you know that you have to make cuts, and you can't decide where you want to make those cuts in the script. But no, largely it was a really positive experience.
Well, that's good. Did you give it a hand with her character development?
Yeah, I did, but you know, she's a very smart woman and a really great actress.
Yeah.
And even when I'm just working directing stuff, I would always ask actors. I think actors are often thought of usually by producers and execs as they don't tell them anything, they need to sort of be led around and kept in the dark, but they're very intuitive people, and very, very smart people, and have a very keen eye for the human condition. And Nat is amazing at that. So to have somebody like that with that level of detail is invaluable when you're sitting down writing the script and building the character. So it was mainly me sort of pushing the character maybe in one direction, and then Nat would build it out from there. But it was very collaborative. But it's very much her character, and I think it's important then as a director to just let her take it, and if she's going in the wrong direction, to just sort of move it back in
Just
line.
guide her.
Yeah, but it's really up to her to build the character, because she ultimately was going to play the character. However, at the beginning of the process, she was just writing the script. She wasn't going to be in the film.
Oh, what? Oh.
No, so that was our, sorry. At the beginning of this process, Nat wasn't going to be in the film. We were just writing it together.
Right.
Because we're very real people. We're very real about where we were in the industry at the time. She wasn't in a position to be a lead in a film. She was at a particular place in her career where she wasn't getting sent scripts or being given roles that she was really excited by. And so sitting down to write a screenplay was, as she tells it, sort of adding another feather in her cap, so that she wasn't just going to be an actress forever. She wanted to develop a screenplay and ultimately produce other material. And so you have to start somewhere in that process, and that was very much it. And then there was a smaller role that was ultimately played by Emily Ratajkowski, and she was going to play that role maybe 4 years into the process. And then another 4 years later, after Thrones and Hunger Games and stuff like that, then she actually became a green light element for the project. For me, I always wanted her to play Sophia, and to be, the Hitchcock blonde, which is essentially, you know, what we were creating or crafting was a kind of contemporary version of that character that we've seen in many Hitchcock movies.
That actually leads me to another question that I've got here is, so do you think that is the reason why it's been in works for about 8-9 years? Because you know maybe had the person to play Sophia?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or do you have somebody in mind when you were writing it at the time?
No, only Nat. For me, it was only
Okay.
Nat. Yeah.
All right.
I didn't have anybody else.
No.
I rarely think of actors when I'm writing them.
Right. Okay.
Maybe the lead, like if whoever that is, but in this case, it was always Nat. I don't really think of shots unless they kind of just pop into my head. I just keep it quite lean and keep the script as a writing document. So there was nothing in the script about camera movement, there was nothing in the script about sound, other than something that we definitely hear, but there was no notes about sound design, there was nothing about the camera, you know, cranes in or zooms in, or we cut to a close-up of her or whatever. It was strictly the script.
So there's sex scene in the movie, which
Right.
obviously is awkward.
To shoot, I'm guessing, and obviously the more awkward.
With her, your loved one. How did that feel for you?
Well, they're completely surreal anyway. It doesn't matter who it would be with. I've done a few of them before. This was more so because it's something that we've written together. So it's kind of it is completely surreal. When you're actually doing them, it's a completely different vibe on the set. You know, you've got a lot of people around, but it was that element of it was a closed set. But what I did find was that I couldn't really engage in what was going on, because I'm standing there with my little monitor, and the first AD is beside me with his walkie-talkie, and he's looking at his watch. The script supervisor is beside me, and all I can hear is her pencil going like this, and then you look over and there's a grip, you know, facing the other way, banging out a text. And so what I ultimately did was I stopped what we were doing. Ed Skrein had never done a sex scene before.
Right,
He
okay.
usually kills people and beats them up and stuff like that. So it was new to him. But I went in and I took the camera from Cy, the DOP, and then I operated the camera for the scene.
Right.
Because I just felt if it was the three of us in the room, it would be easier. Ed was blindfolded, so he couldn't see me, so he didn't really give a shit. And Nat was kind of looking at me going, I was like, just, let's do this.
Right, okay.
And that's how we shot it. It was a little bit more graphic than ultimately what ended up in the film, but it was kind of then calibrating it and just finding the right balance. You know, it's reasonably gratuitous, but it's not overly. It's actually very short, and you don't see an awful lot. I think there's more suggested than you actually see.
Right.
But yeah, that was a hard day.
I guess. Yeah. So the sound design does a fantastic job of conveying her world, specifically her blindness, to the audience. It is a very intense sound design, obviously, because
Yeah.
you need to use it for Jennifer understands the psychology of being blind, I guess.
It's exactly that. There's a visual grammar that you establish, and you have to build that out. And I'm really glad that the sound design has been picked up on by lots of journalists and critics, because it's a huge part of the film. It's a huge part of establishing her world and putting the audience in her headspace and how she hears the world. And we spent a great deal of time in Berlin. I posted the film. I did a lot of the post-production in Berlin because of the finance deal that we had, and worked with an amazing a German sound designer. And we spent, I don't know, 3-4 months or something like that. Certainly a lot longer than you would normally get to do on a low-budget indie movie. But I started the process. I think I had the first conversation with another sound designer who I ultimately it didn't work out with before we even shot it. So I was having those conversations quite early on in the process, and then in pre-production, we kept developing it and opening it out, but he really nailed it, and then it was basically the two of us just going back and forth for months, until I ended up then in Berlin. And it was a difficult mix as well, trying to get the balance right, and really pushing him and pushing that process, and not sort of being afraid to kind of go for things or push things. There's always people generally want to play it safe, but you have to push those elements so that they really jump through. It's also trying to protect the mix so that it plays on your phone, on a laptop, when you buy it or rent it on iTunes or watch it in a cinema. Ultimately, the life of the movie is going to be on Netflix or iTunes or Amazon or whatever. It's not the big screen experience. There's a fraction of your audience are going to see and hear that and have that experience. Yeah. But ultimately, you're making it for, I was going to say the small screen, but I mean the small screen is now 60-inch TVs, with surround sound systems in your house. So you're creating the experience. As much as you want it to be theatrical, you're not at that level.
Of course.
And I don't think anybody really anymore is at that level with these kinds of movies, which is a shame, because, I don't know, 20 years ago, and certainly 30, 40 years ago, people were going to the theaters to watch these movies, but we just don't do it anymore. So, which is a shame. But what you can do is create the same experience, and so that was something we were constantly talking about in terms of compression and extents for digital downloads, DVDs, all of that stuff. That was really important to me. In terms of also the visual and protecting that, because lots of times directors don't supervise those elements, and they just concentrate on the theatrical experience. But that's not where the life of the movie ultimately is going to be.
Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time.
Pleasure.
Yeah, and wish you the best with the movie.
Thank you.
Looks fantastic.
Thanks. Lovely to meet you.
I know, nice to meet you.